Alright, we're back. We are COMP123 in the summer 2019 semester at Centennial. And we are lesson 9, part 4 of our broadcast. We're going to build a numeric keyboard. We're going to continue from what we did last time when we were together. So that's like we were building up a keyboard. I don't know if you remember that. And we used the layout panel. That's what we're using. I'll see if I can find the stuff we did together, which was this one, I believe. Okay, there's our keyboard. Okay, and it's all of its glory. Okay, well, we need to make a couple changes here. Okay, a couple changes. One is right now the keyboard. Notice that if I change the size of my key of the shape, this changes, but not my result label. All right. So my result label is something that I want to kind of change with my layout. Okay, so that's kind of something that I want to add. That's one. Also, just wanted to change a couple things here. In my properties, I had set my result label's number here, or my font, something that's pretty small. I believe it was like 20. Let's make it something like 30, so it's much bigger. But here's what I want to do. I want to kind of expand my my layout panel and add additional rows and columns now that I've got numbers. So let's suppose I want to do that. How do I do that? Right? So if I want to add an additional row, which is what I want to do here, I want to put this one at the top. I could do it this way. I could go click this little smart arrow. Here's my smart arrow. I can click on Edit Rows and Columns. I could choose Rows. And if I press add, it'll add it to the bottom. I don't want it to add to the bottom. I want it to the top. So add is not what you do. You go to the top and you click insert. Now there are 5 rows. 100% divided by 5 rows is 20% each. Okay, so this has to change. I can highlight all of these rows. I can go to percent and I can change this to 20. Okay, and now you can see that I have an extra row that's empty up here. Are you with me? Okay, so all I did was added a row. I want to take this thing, this output label thing that I made. Here it is. Here's my result label, is what it is, right? Here's my result label. I want to take this thing, I'm going to put it inside of my table, right? Notice that it shrinks to fit. What I want actually is the anchor for this particular result label. I want it to go back to what we did before. I want to make it centered or stretch to fit. And now you can see that it's perfectly fitting inside of here. However, this is way too small. I want my result label to stretch across multiple columns. So how do I do that? How do I stretch across multiple columns? Well, there's an option where you can go to column span, and you can change the column span. If I change to 2, it does this. And if I change it to 3, it does this. So now my results label is inside of my table layout here. And you can see that now it's going to expand and shrink all together, which is good. That's what I want. Okay, next part. Well, the equal sign was a good experiment, but that's not what I want. I don't want the equal sign to be there. In fact, I don't even want equals. I want a key that says done. I want the done key. I want a backspace key. I want a decimal key. I want a clear key. That's what I want. Other keys. And I need an additional column for that. All right, so again, going up to here, I can go to Edit Rows and Columns. And I can go to Columns. And this time I want to add it to the end. So add, but I have 4 columns now. 100% divided by 4 is 25% each. So I want to kind of highlight all of those, go to percent and change this to 25. And now you can see I have an additional column. I want to continue to column span additional steps. So I'm going to click on this result label and go to column span, again, column span, and change this value to 4. All right. I want to move this thing over. This is my equal sign, but equal sign doesn't make any sense. I'm not making a calculator now. What I'm doing is I'm making a little numeric keyboard to help you with your assignment 4. So instead of having to worry about validation, we can use a keyboard for input. Okay? How do we do that? So here you can see that I have this little equal sign. I want to change this equals button. I'm going to call it the done button. So I changed the name, done button. And I want to change this label so that instead of equals, it says done. So this is where we depart from the regular 20. I want to change this size to about 14, because that makes sense. So I'm going to go to font. I'm going to change this to font size 14. And maybe that's even too small for what I'm doing here. Let's just make it a little bit bigger. Right, there it is, done. And what I want to do here is the done button is going to have, when you click done, I'm going to be done adding the number. All right, that's what's going to happen. So instead of you having to figure out validation rules, the way it's going to work is this: the whole keyboard is going to be invisible. When I click on the place that I want to add my value, it's going to bring the keyboard up. I'm going to enter the values in the keyboard, and when I click done, it's going to hide the keyboard again. Okay? All right, so that's one. So the next one is I want to have a decimal. So I want to take the 0, copy paste, and I want to move it across. You can also control drag. So if you hear, I want to change this to the decimal point. So I'm going to change this text to decimal. And I'm going to change this up here to the decimal button. Okay, decimal button. Up here on the top, I want to have a back button. Okay, that's what I want. So I'm going to take this and control drag over here to this side. Control drag copies, that's what it does. So I'm control dragging over here, and this is going to say the back button. So this is back button. However, I don't have a symbol for back. I don't have a symbol for that, right? You know, I can go down here and put a really like an arrow like this, like something like this, but it really doesn't look good. So I'm going to introduce you the idea of background images for buttons, right? And if you look up on eCentennial, I've already designed a background image, a back button image that you can download. Okay? Kind of make one for you. So how does this work? So first of all, I'm not going to have any text. So no text inside the button, right? Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to where it says background image. Click on these ellipses right here. This is for the button. So first I got to click the button. Again, go to background image, click the ellipses, and then notice that there's no image I can choose. I need to import the image. Import. When I do that, I can go to my desktop, wherever I have the image. So I have my image called the back button. Here it is. And press open. And you can see an image of the back button. That's what it's going to look like. And then press OK. And you're going to see that it appears, but it appears tiled. Look. Why? Because of here. Because background image layout is tile. We don't want tiled. We want stretch. Right? If you did zoom, it looks like this. Zoom is not bad either. So here's what it does. Here's the differences between all this. If I take this thing and I open this up now, right? It stretches to fit. It zooms. Right? If I went to stretch, let's go to stretch. It stretches to fit the entire thing. If I go to tile, it tries to tile the button as much times as it can. Okay? So we want, again, either zoom. If I want center, it's going to give me one button, but right in the center, the same size. Right? So zoom or stretch is probably the right thing to do. Let's make it zoom. There we go. Okay, so now if I reduce the size of this again, if I go lower, right, you can see that I'm going to get to the point where it's going to look pretty good. Okay? So that's the back button. Okay, cool. Now one more button, which is going to be the clear button. So I'm going to copy this button here, the 6. So control drag the 6. And I'm going to go to this. It's going to be called the clear button. Right? And my clear button is not going to be steel blue. I'm going to make it some kind of orange, like a darker orange color. So let's go to dark orange. There it is. And I'll change the text to say clear. So I'm going to go down to the text, move that to clear, and then change the font size for this particular button, because it's not a numeric button, to 14 again. Are you with me? I can wait. I'm going to finish my design, then I'm going to get you guys to catch up, okay? And then I can answer questions. All right, cool. But what about this space up here? Look, there's a space of a button missing. It's almost like a missing tooth. Whenever I see buttons like this, and I don't see like my entire keyboard, you know, full, it's like a mouth with missing teeth. I don't want that. I want the buttons to be there. I'm sorry to say it that way, but I want buttons to be there. So what I could do is I could make the 0 button stretch between these 2 points like this. I could say that the 0 button has a column span of 2, right? And I could say that the done button, I'm going to move it up here, has a row span of 2. Row span. So it kind of looks like this now. That's my final design. What do you think? It's not great, but it's not terrible either. And what this does is it allows me to use all the possible space in my grid. That's what I'm doing here. It also gives me the opportunity, if I wanted to add additional buttons or other things, I could do that here, right? Now notice what I did. I was able to use the layout in order for me to place my the objects for my numeric keypad, and it allows me, again, if I can't select the layout anymore, it's difficult sometimes when you have this to select the layout. Like, I have to kind of go between buttons. And if you have problems doing that, you can always go up here and select the layout. So I made it a big, you know, where I said number button table layout panel. Woo! There it is. So you can see I can select the whole layout, I can move it around, and I can also make it bigger or smaller, or scrunch it up or make it bigger, depending on what I want to do. Now I know that my BMI calculator is going to be 320 by 480, right? So I know that this form is way too big. Let's change this form so it's 320 by 480. So I can go here to size, and then go 320 and 480. And now this is the size of my form. Now again, if you notice, this button numeric keyboard is too big. I want to kind of make it fit like this. So I kind of make it so that it fits. And I can't let this keyboard take up the entire space. It's just too much. So I'm going to kind of shrink it down a little bit more. Something that looks like this, like half the size. So my final version is something that looks like this. And if you notice, my lesson 9, it says lesson 9 on the top here. Let's change this to, again, if I was going to do it, it would be like a calculator of some kind. But yours is going to be the BMI calculator, right? Mine's just going to be a regular, it's another calculator, something else. And this is a great point to put it up on GitHub, because remember that your assignment requires GitHub, and you get 2 marks if you just use GitHub as backup, and you get another 2 marks if you use GitHub for development, and which is what I'm doing here. So I'm going to go to Team Explorer, I'm going to go to Home, I'm going to go to Changes, and on GitHub I'm going to add all this stuff. These are the things I added. I'm going to say finalized UI design for numeric keyboard, because that's what I'm doing, right? Commit all, sync, and push, and that's going to push everything up, to GitHub. Okay. Now, are you with me? You think it's fast, but actually, I'm going as slow as I can, like molasses, right? One thing to note is properties. For my Team Explorer, notice that I don't have my, when I do sync, if you notice my sync, I don't have my image. If I go to Home, right, as an example, and I go sync, you notice that my image doesn't appear here, right? And what you can do is, if you go Home, you can also go to Settings, and if I go to global settings, you can change it so that I want my images. This is my account information, but it says enable download of author images from third-party sources. I want to click that box on, right, and update. And now what I can see is I'll see my picture every time I update, right? That's all I've done. All right, so far so good. Let's try this out. Let's see what it looks like. It looks like this, right? And here's a problem. I shouldn't be able to do this at all. My app should not allow me to do this. And I asked you guys to take away your maximize button too. So how do I do that? If I go to properties for my form, I can say that the maximum size and the minimum size I can set to whatever it's going to be. I can also change some of the ways this thing allows me to move. For example, my control box, right? I have a maximize button. So let me just go back to maximize button. So here's the minimize box and the maximize box. I said the maximize box should be false. So we turn that to false. So now when I go here, I can't select the maximize box, right? Minimize box is okay, right? But I can't select the maximize box. And the other thing that I always like to do is I always want to fix this size so it's not resizable, right? So it says auto size is false, right? But I want to change the ability for me to resize this thing at all. So how do I do that? Is there a one-click thing that can help me? So again, if you look, there's different ways of adjusting this. So I got a background image, right? If I look through this, I'm just waiting for you guys to update your stuff, by the way. I'm pausing so you update your UI. That's why I'm doing this. Not because I want you to, to continue. So I've got double buffer. I got enabled. I can enable or disable it. But I got this one thing that says FormBorderStyle, and it says sizable. I can just turn this to, I don't want it to size, right? I can say, if I say to fixed single, right? And if I press start now, well, I won't be able to size my form anymore. Look, I can't resize my form. I can't do it, even if I wanted to. I can minimize it, but I can't maximize it and I can't resize it. Okay, so that's kind of a feature. I don't know if I asked you to do that, but your border style, for sure, on this kind of your form border style should be fixed single. All right, because it'll stop your user from sizing things. All right, are you with me now with this design? Because this is where we have to get to now. I want to make this thing work, right? And we have to work out the logic rules to make this happen. Okay. By the way, if you guys missed the image, how I brought the image in, again, the image is a background image. And what you can do is you can press the ellipses here and import the image from the one I gave you on eCentennial. Okay? All right, this is great. So what I want to do now is I want to do some logic. So let's take a look at our logic first of all. First of all, my form is named incorrectly. My form is named Lesson 9 form. We're just going to call this calculator form. So let's rename this thing. So we'll call this calculator form. Cool, calculator form it is. All right, good. Now what I want to do is I want to check out some of the events. So remember that for each of these things, I have properties, but I also have events. And I should have events for all the click events. Look, so 7 is good, 8, 9, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 0, decimal. Uh-oh, decimal doesn't have an event. So let's add decimal to the click event. So we can pull it down like this. And same thing goes with backspace. So the back, the clear, and the done, they also have to have this. So I check. Sometimes the biggest problem, people come around and say, I don't know why, Professor, but when I click on this button, it doesn't do anything. Is it connected? Is it connected? Sometimes people forget to connect their buttons, right? Now here's a problem. The way I've been doing it this time is I've been trying to detect the type the text inside the button. But not every button in my control has text. Like, for example, my image button. There is no text in the image. So how now do I detect if there's text? There's no way of doing it, right, without crashing the program, actually. So the way to do it is to add a tag for each one of them. So there's text, and there's also tag. And I want to check everything the same way. So if I'm checking everything the same way, I'm going to use the tag property so I can check all the tags that they're the same, right? So I'm going to call this tag for the back, the backspace. I'm just going to call it back. I'm going to change the clear tag to clear, lowercase, all lowercase, and the done tag to done. The decimal, which is also a non-numeric, right? I want to change the decimal to decimal, lowercase, right? And then I got to do the same thing for all the buttons. The button is going to be 7. This button is going to be 8. This button is going to be 9. This button is going to be 4, and so on. So why am I doing this? Because I want a secondary way of identifying the buttons. Now there's other ways to do that. I could base it on button name. So the button name is 1 button, 2 button, 3 button. I could do that too. But this is a far easier way of doing it for me. Okay, so all the buttons have their thing. I might as well put this as the result. Okay, so I can check to see if any of these things is clicked. Now, for the results, I don't have a click event for the result because I don't think that anyone's going to click on this and expect to do anything. All right? So notice that each of these things now has a tag. So 7, 8, 9, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, a 0, a decimal, a done, a clear, and a back. Okay, so all those things have something. Are you with me? So I've changed all the tags, and the reason why I've changed all the tags is so that way it gives me another opportunity to identify which button it is that's incoming. I'm only going to use one event, remember? So I'm going to go back to calculator form now. Here's my calculator form. And remember that I have this single event called calculator buttons click. I don't want this stuff anymore, so this stuff can go. And I'm calling this the selected button. Let's just call this the button. Let's just rename this. We'll call this the button. Whatever the button is. Oops. We also talked about last day, we talked about as. The keyword as is a good way of downcasting my button from an object, the super duper object that rules all objects, right? The object superclass, right? I want to downcast it to a button. So the sender now is an object, but a special object, the button object. Okay, cool. So we've done this. So let's think about this now. I want a way of when I press the buttons, I want to accumulate or append all the button presses in a one big long string. Okay? And I want it to survive the click event. The click event, I can't declare it here. All right? The click event is only when I click on a button. Right? It has to survive past the click event. Okay? So the way to do that is to create some properties, my class properties up here. So I'm going to go to my class properties. And again, we're going to call these class properties. And we're going to use the word keyword prop. And the first one I'm going to do is the output string. So I'm going to make a string. I'm going to call this string output string. Okay? I also want a public property for my floating point value. My floating point value is going to be my output value. So when I convert it, I want it to be in floating point format. Keep track. So output string, output value. Here's another thing I need. When I press the decimal, I only want one decimal to appear in my string ever. There can't be more than one decimal, right? So I need to keep track of whether or not there is a decimal inside of my string. So again, I'm going to go prop. And I want to make this a Boolean. I'm going to keep track of whether or not there's a decimal. So I'm going to call this decimal exists. So I got those three. Output string, my output value, does the decimal exist, right? Is there anything else I need? Think about this now, right? I'm keeping track of some flags, right? We may need another one. Let's see. Okay, cool. So now let's go back down here. So I'm going to say something like this. First, I want to accumulate all the numbers that I press, but it's not going to be the button.text. I want to look at the button.tag, and I want to see if it's possible that I can parse it. So one thing I want is, I want to be able to see that the value is valid, right? So I'm going to say that is the result is valid. So, or the result is a numeric. So I'm going to say that Boolean numeric result is equal to try parse. So again, what am I doing? It's an integer. Integer dot try parse. And I'm going to put in there the thing that I want to look at, the tag, right? We don't have it yet. And then an out value, right? My out value, which is going to be the result, right? The numeric result, all right? Or we'll call this the numeric value, if you will, right? We don't have these things yet. So that's what I want. This is what I want. I don't have a tag. I don't have a tag right now. And I don't have numeric value, all right? So I need to establish those two things. So tag, I can say var tag is equal to the button dot tag dot toString, because I want the string value of the tag. So that's the first thing. I could also just change this to string, because right now it is a string. Remember what var does. Var tries to infer, uses type inference to try and figure out what it is, right? However, once it's a string, it's always a string, okay? Next, for the numeric value, it needs to be of what type? The numeric value has got to be something that has been calculated. Float. It's probably a good example of what it's going to be. So float, numeric value, right? And that's going to be where I'm going to save everything. If I want to initialize this, right, what I want to try and do is set the numeric value to some value. I'm going to set it to 0.0f to start off with, right? F for float. Right, now here's something. It says that cannot convert out float to out int. Oh, that's right. It's got to be an integer. Sorry, not float. Int. Because it's going to be integer value that I'm getting, right? 0. There we go. All right. So that this Boolean right here, numeric result, is only going to happen if it's a numeric value. So the tag. I'm looking at the tag of the button. Remember the button? Here it is. Here are all the buttons. And each button now has a tag that I've set up. Right? Here's the tag. So 9, 8. But what about this one? Back. That's not numeric, so that'll fail. Right? So this numeric result means that it's passed the test. That's what it means. Okay? So if it's passed the test, I want to accumulate the value. I'm going to say if numeric result, if that's true, right? If it's a numeric result, then what I want to do is I want to add my outputs to my output string. I want to plus equals, right, the tag value, right, that I've just inputted, right? Because my tag now is a string, right? Does that make sense? And when I'm done, I've done doing that. I'm going to append result label.text. I'm going to make it equal to my output string. Okay? Now again, this is my preliminary work that I'm doing. And there's going to be some issues we need to fix. Okay? And you're going to help me with that. Alright, so is this enough? What does it do for me if I do this? Well, if I press play, I get this. 98520 and then dot dot. I don't get dots, I don't get clear, I don't get any of this stuff. But I can keep entering this forever. Curious, guys. Does this make sense? Can a person be 985 billion or whatever the hell this is, this number, height or weight? It doesn't make sense. We're going to have to change this later on. We're going to have to stop this from happening. Okay, so this is okay, but what if I just do it again? And what if I say, okay, 985, but what if I can start with a 9, but I can also start with a 0, which is kind of weird too. This is wrong. Look, I shouldn't be able to do this. Right? That's wrong too. Right? So this is not possible. I got to stop the zeros from happening. Okay? So I got some work to do. I've got some work to do. Let's try and fix some of this stuff. First of all, I want to say that if I press a non-numeric button, there's going to be 4 different results, right? The done, the clear, the back, or the decimal. Does that make sense? Back, clear, done, and decimal. So let's do that. So we can do that by saying something like this. If it's not a numeric result, I can say else, then, it's not a numeric result. I'm going to switch the tag, and the different cases that I'm going to have are the following. 1, case back, the back button. The other one, case done, the done button. Case clear, the clear button. Oops. Out. And finally, case decimal, the decimal button. Okay, this is one way of handling it, by the way. You might see other solutions online, but this is the way I'm going to handle it. So what does this do? It means that, okay, well, if it's not a numeric result, because it failed, right? Look, it failed. It's not numeric. If it's a numeric result, do this. If it's not a numeric result, then switch. It must be one of these other buttons that I'm hitting, right? And one of these specific ones. Okay, let's do the clear first. So when I click the clear button, what is it going to do? It's going to set the result text to 0, right? So result label.text is equal to 0, okay? I'm also going to set the output string also to 0, right? That's also going to be equal to 0. And you know what? I'm going to wipe away a potential decimal. Decimal is going to be gone too, right? If there's a decimal, it's going to be gone. So I know that the decimal exists. That's going to be equal to false because it's going to be wiped away. I know that. When I clear, I do all this stuff. For sure. Do you agree? Press the clear button, all those things get cleared up again. I said it. Also, one more thing, the output value also is going to be 0. Output value is also going to be 0.0f for float. All those things get reset. Okay, let's try it. Let's see if it works. I'm going to press start. And now I'm going to press these buttons, 9, 8, 5, 6, whatever it's going to be, and I click clear, and then we're good. And I can start again, 2, 3, so, oh man, that's wrong, man. I can't stand this. How do I fix that result? I click clear, it's back. But if I start with this, it appends to 0. That can't be, right? That can't be. Because why? Because it didn't do it at the beginning. Look, when I started this off, if I press 6, it disappeared, right? But once I press clear, my result label is now 0, and so is my other thing. Both my output string and my result is 0, so therefore it becomes 0, right? So what I need to do is up here in my numeric result, I got to check to see if my output string, if it's already 0 and I'm adding something in here, then the result is still 0. It cannot be 0, ever, right? So up here, I'm going to say that if the my output string is not equal to 0, if it's something else, and only then I want to add this thing and update the result. Right? Does that make sense? Because if it's 0, then I should never be able to add this in. It can't be 0. Let's try this out. So now I'm going to go here, and you can see that I type 0, and I can't add more zeros. Right? 2, 0. Oh man, what happened? How come none of this is working now? Huh? Well, I mean, if output string is not equal to 0, well then that is whatever it is, right? I mean, so what else? I have to put an else? Or how about this? How about just putting this down here? Isn't this kind of the same? I mean, if I did this, how about if I did that? Because if I did this, it says, well, if my output string is not equal to 0, then add to it. If it is equal to 0, then that's okay, right? So let's see what happens. So, no, and then no problem, clear, and then 0, 0, 0, 0, 2, 3. Oh man, what the heck? Why isn't this working now? Why isn't this working now? What's happening? Is it a syntax error? No, it's a logic error, right? So what's happening is, as soon as I press clear, a couple things are going to happen. My result label.text is going to be 0, right? My output string is also going to be 0, right? My output value is also going to be 0. My decimal exists is also going to be false, right? What am I testing for? Is my output string not equal to 0? If it's not equal to 0, then I want to add it. But it is equal to 0. So I'm never going to be able to add anything again, right? That's the problem. So this check is wrong, right? We want to check to see if it is equal to 0, right? If it is equal to 0, we want to not do anything. That's what we want. We don't want to do anything. The only time we want to do something is if the output string, right? It's almost going to skip this part if it's equal to 0. Put it that way, okay? Because look, if I take this check away, let's take the check away again. So I take the check away. What it's doing is, and this is a bit of logic that we're going to work out. I can do this, right? I can make a bunch of zeros, okay? I don't want to make a bunch of zeros. I want to detect that there's already 0 there. So what am I checking? Am I checking the output string? Am I checking the result label? They're both 0, right? What do I really want to do? I want to say, well, okay, if it's not equal to 0, if it's something else, if my output string is something else, or my tag maybe, the thing that I'm clicking is something else other than 0, not my output string, my tag, right? Well, my tag is going to be the new thing I'm trying to enter. But what's already there? If my output string is just 0, then I don't want to add anything, right? I don't want to add anything if my output string is 0, right? So whatever is my output string so far, it's 0. But it starts off at 0. So let's check my result label instead. But then it's going to be the same thing. My result label.text is going to be 0. So, are we at an impasse? Can we not go on? I mean, one thing stops the other thing from happening, and I mean, we want to test it. Come on, right? Help me out, guys. You guys are doing this, not just me, right? Think about this. I want to be able to do this result label text is equal to 0 for sure, right? And I want to make sure my output string is also equal to 0. That's not my initial step. But I don't want to be able to enter this output string. I don't want to add to the output string if it's just 0, right? But it starts off at 0, right? So what I'm saying is I want the 0 to not be pressed. If I press a 1, it's okay. A 2, 3, 4, 5, anything else is okay. But not a 0 if it's 0, right? I can't enter a 0 if it's 0, but I can enter a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes? I could. Now remember, branching statements is necessarily not a great thing. So tell me what I should put. What should I put?
First you do the resultable text, and if it does just equal 0, then you do the output string not equal to 0.
Okay, but I mean, if I can check whatever one it is. Both of them are going to equal to 0 right away, right? Well, output string is already equal to 0. Look, Output string definitely equals 0, right? So is my output string and my result text box is text is equal to 0. Both of them are 0, right? And again, they need to be. When I clear, both those things have to be cleared, right? But my challenge is, what happens here? What's my if statement here that goes through? How do I change this? I got to check to see if it's something, right? Cannot equal to 0, right? How about if it's equal to 0? If my output string, right, is equal to 0, then what does that mean? Then I want to do something else. I want to actually do this. I can do this. I can say that I want to make my result label.text equal to my output string if it's equal to 0. Else, do something else. So I can do, you know, if here's what it should be, right? If it's this, do nothing. Otherwise, if it is, and we can write this another way. How do we write this differently, guys? Come on. If it's this, if it's 0, then do nothing, right? If my output string is equal to 0, right? If it's, but then that would be nothing, right? Huh? Output string. Output string equal. Who? Tag. This is equal to tag, right? Yes, yes. Here, output string is equal to tag, right? So it does something. Output string is equal to tag, right? If it's equal to 0, my output string is equal to tag, right? Make sense? Otherwise, add to it, right? Let's try this out. So if I go back to this, and I go 9, 5, 2, clear, 0 doesn't work, but 2, 0 does work. Make sense? I know it's silly, but we need to do this kind of stuff. Guys, we're going to see how one condition can mess up another condition. All right? We're going to see that in a bit. All right, so let's go to the next part. All right, so we've got our result text stat. We did this part. I want to start doing the next one. So I did clear. Let's do decimal. That's the next one that's really hard. Okay? What does decimal work like? Okay, so here's what I want to do with decimal. The only time I can use a decimal if a decimal doesn't already exist. If a decimal exists, I already have that Boolean, right? By default, it's false, right? If a decimal exists, I want to ignore it. So the only way that I can do a decimal if it doesn't exist. So if not decimal exists, so a decimal does not exist, right? Only then we want to output string plus equals to decimal, right? And then we also want to say that now the decimal exists, right? That's true, right? I just added a decimal exists. But now, my friends, we have a problem again, right? It creates another problem. Okay, let's see what the problem is. So if I press 8.3. No problem, right? It won't do it. But what about when I do this, .3? That's okay, right? How about 0.2.3? Okay, cool. How about 3? It works, right? And why? We provisioned for this already because I set up my output label to 0 no matter what I do, right? Let's try it one more time. I want to start from the beginning. So start from the beginning and press .3. Uh-oh. What happened there, right? Because my output label and my other stuff hadn't been initialized to 0, right? It didn't have a value. My output string is empty. So because my output string is empty, it's adding dot right away. So we can't do this. In fact, what we want to do is see this clear. We want to make it into a method, right? So we want to do something like this. I want to say that I want to do quick actions and refactorings. I want to extract a method, and I want to say clear numeric keyboard. Enter. And what this does is it creates a little method down here that I can call again. And I can say that this method clears the numeric, or I can say even resets, really. That's what it does. Resets the numeric keyboard and related variables. Okay? And what I want to do here is, before this starts, when my form loads, so I'm going to double click on my form to create a new event, the calculator form load event, right? I start by clearing it, right? So this is the event handler for the form load event, okay? And I'm going to start by saying clear numeric keyboard. Does that make sense? So as soon as I start my form, I clear everything, I set everything up to false, I do all those kind of things, I do all my initialization here, all right? And I didn't have that before, which causes my problem, my little bug. That was the little bug.
You did have a good beginning, but it was different than after the clear.
That's
now
right.
You have everything else.
Everything's the same. Okay, let's try it again now. So if I press dot 3, I get dot 3. If I press 3.0, I can't do more dots. And I clear, it goes back, and I'm pretty good clearing. Right? Okay? So all good. Would you agree? Are you with me?
Yeah.
It's logic, right? It's simple logic, but we're going to have some other logic problems. Okay, now, so we've done this one. Look, decimal is done, I think. Right? Decimal is done. How about backspace? Oh boy. Backspace is a bigger problem. All right? What does backspace do? Backspace takes the last character and removes it. But what about if it's a decimal? We want to mark it as not exists, right? Does not exist. So we need to detect the last character in the array, know what it is. If it's a decimal that we're removing, first set it to not exist, then remove it. That's what we need to do. Okay? So let's go through that. So remember that we have a couple of string functions. We know what the output value is. We're looking at the output string. My output string dot, and I want to be able to do something called, now there's two of them. There's substring and there's split. Okay? So what substring does is says, okay, it retrieves a substring from this instance. The substring starts at a specific character position and continues to the end of the string. That means I want to go from output string dot length, right, -1. It's going to produce a substring, and I want that substring to be the character, the last character, right? So var last character is equal to this. Now again, this is pretty much overkill. I mean, I only want the last character, right? So I'm using a string function for this. It's not very efficient, and you can do it other ways as well. So I'm making var actually a string because it's a substring. But I really want to just have that last character, right? So we can figure out better ways of doing this. But for now, if the last character is a decimal, make decimal exist false. So if last character is equal to decimal, right, then decimal exists is equal to false, because we're removing it, right? We're getting rid of the decimal so we can be able to enter decimals after this, right? Does that make sense? Okay, what if it's not, or anything else that happens? So I remove something. How do I remove something? Well, I know that I have my output string again. There's string functions, right? Output string dot remove. Because remember, string is actually a collection of characters, right? So I can remove which one? My output string dot length -1. And I want to set this new string, because what remove does is it returns a new string in which all the characters in the current instance are good, right? Except for the last character, right? So I want to say that output string now, output string, is equal to this. Just some string manipulation. Now there's other ways to do this. Remove. Remove is like, I want to pop it off the end. That's what I'm kind of doing. I'm kind of having my string is actually a collection of characters, and I'm popping the last one off the end, right? That's what I'm doing. And then finally, I want to output my new output string to the result text box. or result label. So result label.text is equal to output string.
Can you draft the row?
Hmm?
We will draft the row and we column. Maybe you have 0 character and it will make draft.
So what if I'm removing the last character?
Yeah.
That's a good one. So now my output string, I got to test to see if my output string is, that's very good, you caught that, because that would have been a bug, right? So what happens if my output string dot count, right? If it's equal to 0, we've removed everything, right? But we can't remove everything. So then my output string is now equal to 0. And count is a function. I could also do output string dot length. Actually, maybe dot length would be better, because I don't want to call a function if I don't have to. So if my length is 0, then my output string is 0. Why is that? Because otherwise it's going to be blank. And if it's blank, it's going to cause problems. Again, it can never be blank. My output string at the minimum is always 0. Right? Let's check this out and see if that works. So press start. And let's see if that works. So now I'm going to go 965. Okay, remove 0. Right? And then 9853.2. Remove the 2. Remove the decimal, add the decimal back in. Make sense? So, and then if I remove them all and add the decimal back in, I'm still good. Clear, and then remove that, I can't do it, right? Guys, I'm trying to test every case, each edge case. Every time I want to break my program, I'm trying to break it. I'm trying to think about all the possibilities that the user can enter, combinations, right? Otherwise, the user's going to break it. He's going to do it, or she's going to do it, right? So you have to do it first. Okay, so we've got the backspace and the clear. Now we have to get the done done. Okay, so how does done work? Well, when we're done, right, I want to clear. That's what I want to do, right? When I'm done, I want to clear everything. But I also want to save my value inside my output value, right? Because I want to be able to use that later on. That's what I'm doing this for. My numeric keyboard's collecting my value that I can put into my weight and my height or my age or whatever I want. Okay? So what I want to do here is I want to go back to done, and I want to say that my output value, so here's my output value, that's my first thing, is going to be equal to what? My output string, but I want to cast it, all right, to a float. So float.parse, and then my output string. So this is one place where I don't want to do a try parse. Why? I've already done all my validation before I got here, right? My output string is going to be a minimum of 0. There's no way that it can be anything else but a numeric value at this point, because I'm already done my try parse. I don't have to do it again. You can also use convert to if you want, whatever you want to do here. But this is one first thing I want to do. The next thing I want to do is after I've saved my output value, I want to update, you know, my the rest of the stuff. I want to say that I want to call clear numeric keyboard, right? I want to be able to do that for sure. Because now my numeric keyboard is clear, I saved it. And to make it so that it's visible, let's put a temporary label on the screen so we can see it. So I'm going to make a new label, okay? And you know, just to make it quick, see this label right here? I want to control drag this label in here, right? And I'm going to make it a little bit smaller, right? I'm going to call this label, we're going to call it the height label. Let's just put, here's the height label. Here's my height label. Yay. So my height label is not going to have 0 there. Maybe it's going to have my 0 to the left, like normal, right? So notice my text line is middle right. This should be like middle left, you know, this kind of thing, right? Middle left. left aligned, like normal, right? My text is going to start off at 0. My tag is not going to be result. My tag is going to be my height. Not that I need it right now. I don't need that tag, but I'm going to put it in anyway, for completeness. So this is where it's going to be. Okay, I'm just going to put it there just for testing. That's what it is, just testing. Here's what I want to do. When my application starts, my keyboard doesn't exist. It's invisible. When I click my label, my application's keyboard is going to show up. Two states, visible and invisible, right? So let's double click on this thing. So when I click on my height label, I want to say that, first of all, what is this? This is do a little bit of coding. This is the event handler for the height label click event. That's what it is. And here I'm going to say that my number button table layout panel, this big thing, my number button table layout panel dot visible is equal to false. Oh, sorry, equal to true. So that's when it becomes true. But by default, when I load up my my application, when I unload, it's false. So my number button table layout panel, right, dot visible is equal to false. That's what it's going to be. Okay. So when the form loads, it's invisible. When I click on the button, it's true, right? What about when I click done? So done, it does this. It clears the numeric keyboard, right? And then it also sets the height label dot text, and I'm going to convert back from my output. I'm going to say that the height text is equal to my output value dot toString. So it's going to do a round trip, and then I'm going to disable the keyboard again. So I'm going to say that my new number button table layout panel is visible is equal to false. So why am I doing this? Why am I making it visible and invisible? Because that's how it would work, right? When you start off, you just see your values, the things you're making on your wireframe right now. And when you click on there, it shows up. When you click done, it goes away, right? Let's try this out. So if I go start, I don't have it, right? It doesn't show up. But if I click here, boop, it shows up. If I click done, it goes away. If I click this, it's there. But if I add this 96 and I press done, uh-oh, didn't really change it. What happened? So again, I press this, it goes on, 98, I press done, it should kind of teleport in there, right? So what was the logic to stop me from doing that? So done, my output value, I change this to output string, whatever my output string is, I float parse, right? Here's my output value. And then my clear numeric keyboard, and then I take my height label.text, and I take my output value and put it to string. Oh man, what is my output value? What does it start off at? Well, if you look at it, output value is a float. Okay, here's output value. So my output value is a float. Okay, but my output value starts off at 0. Notice it says my output value is 0.0. Alright, so I initialize it like that. Okay, I'm float parsing my output string. Here's my output string, whatever that is, right? And then I'm clearing the numeric keyboard. Let's not do this. Let's just not do any of this. So I'm not going to hide it, and I'm not going to clear the keyboard for a second. I want to see what happens, right? So if I did this, and I press play, and if I said, okay, well, here I want to see it, and 986, and press done, there it is. What's happening in my clear numeric keyboard? Well, clear numeric keyboard clears the output value, right? Of course. So that's what's happening. So I got to do this first. So I'm going to do this, put it in there, and then put these back into operation. Now it seems as if you know, every single time I clear the keyboard, well, I also do this. But that's not always true, right? So if I'm done, I do this. But if I clear, I don't do this. So it should not be, this should not be included with my clear numeric keyboard. Should not. Okay guys, this is great. Alright, I have most of what I want. Take a look. I have this, right? 0.023 whatever. And then if I press done, it puts it in there. Oh man. Question. How many characters am I allowed? How many characters? Can I make a guy who's like 10,000 pounds? Or 20,000 feet? Can't, right? The maximum number of characters I should be allowed ever is 5. 4 or 3, 999 pounds, right? I mean, I don't know, right? Point, and if I have a decimal, 0.9. That's the maximum I should be allowed, right? And I should not be able to go lower than a certain amount, like, for example, 0.9 kilograms or something like that. I shouldn't be allowed more than 1 decimal place, okay, ever. So, first of all, the label's too small. That's number one. So I should be able to go back and change the label size to something that's reasonable, right? And this one should only be allow me to enter that amount of value. So how do I do that? So here is where I'm entering the value, my numeric result. If my numeric result, if it's numeric, my output string is equal to 0. Okay, cool. This is good. But what about, okay, I want to be able to do this, right? But I only want to be able to do this if my maximum size, right, if it's less than the maximum size. So I got to set up a maximum size value somewhere. So inside this numeric result thing, inside here, I'm going to make a temporary variable. I'm going to make an int, which is a max size. Now, hear me out why I'm doing this. I don't have to do this, but I'm saying that the max size is going to be equal to 3. Okay, so my max size is equal to 3. However, and I can do this a funky way. I could say, instead of doing it this way, I could say that my max size is equal to if my my decimal exists, if decimal exists, right? If that's true, then what I want to say is my max size is 5, right? Otherwise, it's 3. Does that make sense? Because if my decimal exists, I need 2 more characters, right? Now, we're going to have a problem. Because what if I have 0.99999, right? Doesn't make sense, right? But we're going to get to that. So first, my max size is equal to 3. And then, if it's decimal, it's 5. Now, I'm going to say that I'm only going to do this if, here it is, if my max size, my output string, dot length is less than my max size. Oops. Does that make sense? So this will limit the size of my input. However, I still have a problem, right? There's another condition that I'm missing, which we didn't have a chance to handle earlier. But, you know, here's my other condition. My other condition is this, okay? So first, I click on this thing, and I say, okay, cool. I want to have 956.3. I'm good, right? That's 5 characters. I can't go beyond that. It doesn't allow me to, right? If I press done, I get 956.3 pounds. Okay, cool. But what about if it's like, I don't know, 0.3333 or something like that, or 0.0000. Am I allowed? That's not right. That's not right. So, I mean, we have to have a minimum value for everything, right? Like, for example, like 0.1 should be the minimum value. You shouldn't be able to go below minimum. So if a person goes like 0.00001, before he presses done, before it can convert, if it's less than 0.1, it equals 0.1. That's what it should be. Okay, that's an easy check. All right. So I'm going to go back to that. So again, I'm going to go here. So this is all the stuff I've done, and then we press done. Here's my done. I'm going to say that, okay, before I change this value, before I try parse, right, what is the output value? If my output value, right, actually, let's do this. I should probably do this first. I should probably parse it first. So I parse it first, and then if my output value is less than 0.1 f for float, then my output value is equal to 0.1 f. So again, I'm checking to see it doesn't go lower than that, right? I can never be lower than 0.1 f. But there's a problem. Another problem. What if I put 9.33333333? That's also a possibility, right? I don't want that kind of level of stuff. So this handles it for sure. Output value less than 1. But what if my output value is like 9 dot something? I want to be able to do some formatting. I want to do some formatting on my string, right, before I get here. So how do I do that? Is there any way that I can do that? So if I have a decimal, first of all, my decimal has to be in place. Does my decimal exist? If my decimal exists, right, then I only want one character after the decimal place, right? I can never go more than one character. I don't care about 2 characters after the decimal. We're going to go to one decimal place, right? Because we're talking about weight and height, okay? It's probably not really that important for me to go to 2 decimal places. If you really want to, you can say 2 decimal places, fine, all right? But not more than 2 decimal places, let's just say, right? How do we do that? Well, remember, I have my output value, my output string is a string. So before I convert it, I could say that it's going to be truncated. If my decimal place exists, I'm going to go to the last, wherever my decimal place is, that is my split. I'm going to look at that position, find where my decimal place is, and then move over 1, right? Wherever that is, right? I could do that. How do we do that? So remember, I don't want to parse it here, right? The other thing I could do is I could specify that I could sanitize my floating point number. So I could pass my floating point number into another sanitizer, some kind of other function that basically returns a value that's no more accurate than whatever I want. I could do it that way too. But I already have it as a string, and string manipulation is way easier, right? So how would I do this? I would say something like this. Before I get to this point, I would say my output string, right? Now here's the options. I could do a split. What splitting does is it says splits a string into 2 substrings that are based on the characters in an array, right? So I need 2 things. I need a separator, right? And I need a, the rest of the values. So basically what I'm going to say is wherever the separator is, so let's do split, and it's looking for 2 things. Where's the separator? Okay? So 2 substrings. So that's one of them. Splits a string into substrings that are based on the characters in an array. And what it returns? It's an array. Look what I get back. An array of strings. An array of strings. String array. So it's not an array. It's not a string anymore. It's an array of strings, right? So I get 2 strings. One string that's before the decimal, one string that's after the decimal. Okay? So that's kind of okay. Kind of, right? But wouldn't it be good if I could just find the decimal, go one place, and get rid of the rest? Like, that would be the best, right? So what other ways can I do that? So that's one. What other options are there for this, right? So starts with no. So array, I can convert it to a list. To lower, right? I could go with a, and again, there's ways we can find stuff. Contains, let's go up there. I'm going. Here it is. Contains, here's contains. So what does contains do? It says returns a value indicating whether a specific substring occurs within the string. So that's a true or false. That doesn't really do it. I want to know where it contains, right? So I mean, this is interesting, but that doesn't do what I want it to do. Where else? What else can it do? So any, append, average, cast. Huh? Slice is like, I understand what you're saying. It's like a slice function that I want. That's you're thinking about JavaScript, right? But basically what I want to do is, I want to go through here, and if I go index of, here's index of. Reports the zero-based index of the first occurrence of the specified Unicode character in the string. Hey, that's what I want. I want the index of the decimal, wherever that is, if it exists, right? Okay. What if it doesn't exist? What do I get if it doesn't exist? It's not a 0, it's like a -1, I think, if I'm not wrong. I think I get a -1, right? So let's try this out. Output string dot index of, right? And then I want to find the character value, so it must be a single quote, character, a value of dot. So I want to get that, and I want to, that's the location. So that's the location of my decimal. All right. So what I want to do is, if that's the location, so let's say for example it's location 4 or 3, right? So 0 or 99 dot, and then 5 something, 52, right? I want to chop off the last one now. Anything after the decimal place, I want to chop it off, right? So that means that I want to make a substring, right, that chops off at that particular point, right? Huh? Yeah. Or I want to truncate at that point. I want to concatenate or truncate, trim, right? So if I go back here, I can say that, I know it's string manipulation. Output string dot trim, and it says that, okay, so removes all leading and trailing occurrences of a set of characters specified in an array from the current string object. No. Trim characters, that's what that does. What's the other one? It says removes all leading and trailing whitespace characters from the current. And that's not what I want. It's not trim. What else? What is the other one? So it's not toString, it's not toLore, it's not toCharacter array. I want to remove, right? And I want to remove everything after that. So look. So if I go remove, it says returns a new string in which a specified number of characters in the current instance beginning at a specific position have been deleted. That's what I want. So remove. And I want to remove from the output string, whatever the index is, +1. Right? Well, let's try this out first, okay? So I remove everything after this thing +1. Okay, cool. And I want to return it. Remember, it returns a string that has all those strings gone, right? And I want to return it as my output string. Oh boy. Okay. Again, this is all string manipulation. If you guys haven't done string manipulation before, you're doing it now. All right? There's much more things you can do here. This is like really scratching the surface of what you can do. Let's try this out and see if it's totally broken now. All right? So again, I go back and I go 5.66666, and I press done, and I get 5. Almost. Almost. It's like I want to do +2. Let's try that. All right. 5.6666666. Done. Pretty good, right? +2. What if though? What if this doesn't exist, right? So what if this one doesn't exist at all, right? So I want to go to 5.66666, and then I want to press done. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. That's no good, right? Look, guys, we have to test all cases. Remember, we talked about this. When we added something new, we got to test it again, right? We're almost done, guys. So we know that we have to test. We have to test to see if this decimal button even exists in the first place. All right?
This can be put into this
Exactly. So if decimal exists, then we want to be able to, do this removal, and all that stuff. If not, we just float parse. If the decimal doesn't exist, we don't care, right? Because it's going to limit us anyway. And let's try this out. So again, we click onto this, 5666, and then press done. We get 566. If I go back and go 5.666 and press done, it only does 5.6. It rounds it off, right? And this is what we want. Now, final steps before we leave. There's a lot of messy stuff here, guys. Tons of messy stuff. Look at this big calculator buttons click function, right? One thing for sure is this switch case stuff. Back should be its own function. This part right here. We should probably do one of these, quick actions and refactorings, and change this to back button. Backspace. Or remove, we'll say remove last character from result label. Ooh, lots, big method. We did the same thing earlier today. It's a big, ugly method name, but it's very descriptive. Very descriptive. All right? And this one done. What do we call it, my friend? Finalize what? Finalize output, right? Extract method. Call this finalize output. Okay, finalize output. And now decimal. Get rid of this too. I mean, it's pretty small, but you know, you never know. Maybe we'll add more stuff to it later. And we'll say that this method is a add decimal to result label. There we go. So we got all these things. So add decimal to result label. Let's do some code. This method adds a decimal point to the result label. Oh, yep. And this one, finalize output. This method finalizes and converts the output string to a floating point value. Floating point value. And remove last character from label. This method removes the last character from the result label. There we go. So we got all these little things here. I'm going to save it and run it, and let's see what it looks like. It looks like it's pretty good, right? Oh, what happened? What happened? Okay, so it says an unhandled exception of type system argument range exception. Start index must be less than length of string. Okay. So what does that mean? Well, because this remove input string +2. What if there's no +2? What if it's only 5.6, right? So up to +2 is the thing is if this, and we're going to have to min max. So it's got to be the minimum, or the minimum size or maximum size must be the size of the string length, right? So by the way, there is a function like that where we have max, right? So if we do a minimum or a maximum, so if I do max, and I believe it's a math function, math.max, and it says take the two values, right? And returns enlarge the two values, right? And what I want to say is, you know, the maximum value. Almost, I want a clamp. That's probably a better thing. Not a max. It's a clamp. Max clamp. Is there a clamp? Oh, there's no clamp function. So what I want to do is I want to say that, okay, I want to have one more line in here that says, here. Hold on. I'm going to make it separate. I'm going to say, yeah, so I'm going to say the length. So if the output string dot length. If this is less than this, right? If this is less than this, then remove that. Otherwise, remove something else, right? So I got to set the length, and this is the ternary operation here coming up, right? Because I want to say of our int, I'll say characters to remove, right? That's what I want. Sorry guys, you guys can go. I'll put the solution up on GitHub. Okay, thank you. Remember that your wireframe is due tonight at midnight if you haven't done it already. Awesome. Characters to remove, right? Again is equal to, and then I'll make this check. I'll do it on one line, right? Get rid of this if statement. Let's look at a bit of a long check. I'll say that if my characters to remove, if my index is +2 is less than the output string length, then great, then return that output string +2. Sorry, it's question mark. Otherwise, it's output string +1, right? So that's one way of doing it. What's another way? I could do this way, and I could do it so that I set the output string +1 and then check to see if it's long enough.
So then it will give only that number of
Characters to remove, right? Pretty big and long. And by the way, is it possible that I can break this down like this? I can, right? So you can see it all on one big line. It's kind of two lines, but whatever. Now, will it work? How about that? So if I do this and I go 5.6 done. What the heck?
for 5.6 you need the number
5.66 done.
This will work.
Okay. But I want to do 5.6, right?
You need to keep that statement itself only.
So think about this, right? This is not right, right? It says that, okay, if my output string is less than or equal to, right, the length. Let's try this. Let's see if we get the same problem now. So this 5.6 done. That causes a problem. Less than or equal to, because we're trying to remove +2, is no good, right? What other ways can we do it? Because this is interesting, but it's wrong. Guys, I know we're overtime, so if you guys have to leave, it's okay. I'm talking to people who are interested. What other ways can we do this?
So keep the statement itself like the previous one, how we were doing,
I could say that if
and just check if the output string value is 3 digits. Like this.
okay, I could do that.
Keep that as it is. If it is
Hold on.
greater
If the decimal exists and the output string is 3 digits, keep it as is.
as it is.
Okay, we can do that. We can say that's an if statement. Let's do this. So we'll say if the output string dot length is equal to 3, right? Equal to 3, then keep it as is. Like basically say that characters to remove. Actually, don't remove anything. If it's not equal to 3,
Yeah.
if it's not equal to 3, then do the removal, right? If it's like equal to 4, or if it's greater than 3. If it's greater than 3, right? If it's greater than 3, then do this removal, because then it's 4. If it's 4 characters and it's got the decimal, that means it's like 1.33, right? 1.33, right? Then do the removal. What about if it's like 563.1? That's also the same. Then I want to try and remove that, right? Yeah.
How about to send the output string to the long time and we route only the long time only one number.
Okay. So you're saying get a substring after the thing, and then do what? Only return the first number.
I will change it to block number or output string to block number and round on rounding number only.
Hold on. So my index of returns the where I'm pointing to, right?
Yeah.
So what this does, it returns the zero-based index. So +1 would be the actual thing, right? That's actually at the decimal point, +1,
Yeah.
right? So this by itself, right, is equal to the, we'll say int characters to remove, sorry, we'll do this up here. Characters to remove. We'll set it at something. We'll say that the characters to remove is at least 1, let's just say, right? But we don't know what it's going to be. It's the index of. Let's make it to whatever it is right now. Hold on a second.
You can include that one in the if statement. If the index is greater than index of is greater than like 4.
Yeah, I know, but the thing is, if it's greater than 3, that means it's 4 or more, right? And this is where we have to do the removal. That's the only time it has to be done. So, sure, okay.
String dot index of will return.
Hold on.
Include in the if statement of the and.
Hold on a second.
There.
Cut. Paste. There we go. Okay, this is new. So we can say that characters to remove. Let's just get rid of this. My output string index of. We need that part because that's the thing that tells me where my thing is, right? +1, right? Because that's the actual index. That's the point. That's the actual point. The decimal place, right? And oh yeah, I have this already set up. So let's just get rid of this for a second, right? And what I'm saying is, okay, so that is if it's greater than 3. Greater than 3 means I have like 66 or 6.66, right? 6.66 is greater than 3. Yeah. So then I want to remove +2, not +1, +2, because then I would be okay, right? Because +1 is the decimal place. +2 is 1 after the decimal place. That's what it is, right? And then what I want to do is I want to remove this stuff. If decimal exists, then characters. That's why I can't put it here. It's got to be out here. Sorry, it's got to be here. Oh yes.
The output string dot index of dot. If there is no dot, it will be returning like -1, right?
Hold on a second. Characters remove. I don't remove anything. I don't do the removal. If I don't do this, if it's not at least 3, right? Then I don't remove.
You don't do anything.
Right? And this can stay in there like we said. Did it work for you? Hold on. Let me try mine first. And then I want to see yours yet because I'm recording. I want to make sure that we're good, right? I like your thinking though. I want to try and make it as good as we can, right? So let's take a look. All right. So let's try this out. So again here 5.6 done. We're good, right? 5.66 done. 5.666 done. 666.3 done. Oh. Now what? Did you cover that case?
Yeah, I will use this one.
Let's see. Let's see what you did. Output string is equal to temp string. Okay, so float temp is equal to float.parse. Are you parsing first?
Yeah, you done.
And then math round. Oh, you're rounding. Okay, so you're doing it the other way around.
Yeah, I will use this one.
Okay, well that's definitely another way to do it. Math.round. Yeah, we could do that. Yeah, I mean it's being converted. We can definitely round. So that would avoid this whole string manipulation stuff, right? We're just going to math round to like 1 decimal place, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, so that's a different thing altogether. That means that before we convert, and we're going to say that we don't have to do any of this stuff then, right? This stuff's not necessary.
This one is also applicable just for checking one condition.
Which
If
one?
the decimal place is not the second one.
Yeah, but we don't have to, I'm saying is, we don't have to do this. If we're going to convert, like you're saying, we're going to round, then it doesn't matter, right? Yeah, so we can get rid of this. Let's just get rid of this here. And we'll round. We'll say that, I like that thing as well. We can say that output value, sure, that's definitely another way of doing it. I just wanted to do it with strings, but we got carried away. Is equal to math down. You use round, and it rounds the decimal value to the nearest integral value, right? But does it give me a decimal number to be rounded? What are the options here? So it says double A. Okay, rounds decimal value to a specific number of fractional digits. Okay, that's the one I want. This one. And then comma. So it's going to be comma and then the number of digits. So so my decimal value is going to be output value, and then my number of digits is 2.
1, right?
1. Sorry, 1. Now, what is it returning? Math.round returns a double. Okay, so now I have to convert this into a float. Right? So, float. Here we go. And why is this causing a problem? Because I need an extra bracket. There we go. Yeah. 6.3. 666.5. No problem. 6.555. Okay. I can accept that. I can. That's acceptable. We can get rid of all this. Okay, so, and again, there's also this thing where we don't want to let it go below 0.1, because what if I say something like, if I start this and I go 0, I want to say that it's 0.00000, and then press done, it's 0.1, right? Yeah, that's what I want. Or 0.0001, or backspace 1, and then it's also 0.1. Yeah, because it's too low.
Around that.
Yeah, right? Because otherwise it's like, doesn't make any sense, right? Alright, so this is the first part. So for you guys who are still here, thank you for staying. The one thing to note about this is that there's one more thing I want to mention, that this is for a single label. Now, I want you to think about it. How do I apply this thing to multiple labels? So I press it on, and I say the active label is the one that I pressed on. And then I press on another one, and now that one can use the keyboard. Different different labels can use the same keyboard. I can apply it to any input. That's what I want to get to. We'll do that on Friday. Okay? Guys, thank you so much. I know, it's long, eh?